Technical climbing. It's one of the most polarizing things within the mountain bike world. And with good reason. It's kind of hard. Thankfully, here in the southern Utah desert, we have our fair share of technical climbs. And I like to think I have a decent amount of experience on those. Based on my experience climbing the rocky terrain here, I've narrowed it down to 5 problems I see in the riders when they simply can't get up a climb. If there is that one climb that has your number, stay tuned. I bet this will help you. Perhaps the most common issue I see when people can't get up a climb is their gear choice. A lot of riders are either in too hard of a gear or too easy of a gear. What matters more than the gear you're in is the gear you can choose where you can produce a lot of torque and still spin when things get steep. Yes, sure, you may feel a little bit better going into the climb in a harder gear, but that momentum will soon run out because it's going to be hard to maintain that cadence up the hill. Same thing on the easier end. It might feel good because you're spinning up into the hill, however, you'll find you have basically no momentum come the time that you need to get up the part you're struggling with. This leads me into my next point, which is weight distribution. It's good to have your weight centered over your bars, and having your chest low on a steep climb helps press that front tire in. However, if you have your weight too far forward, you'll see that the rear wheel will probably slide out on you, especially if it's a loose and steep climb. Your goal here is to make sure that your weight is both over the front wheel and the rear wheel. I see a lot of people that have one or the other, but not a happy median of both. Your rear end should be centered over the saddle even if it's not in it, and the steeper the climb, the lower your chest should be. As your chest lowers, just keep in mind where that rear wheel is and how much pressure you should still have on it to ensure you don't slide out. Based on these first 2 steps, you should already be seeing a lot of progress in your climbing skill. One other tip regarding weight distribution that I'd like to recommend to you guys is the harder and more chunky the climb, the lower your saddle should be. Sure, having a high saddle is great in terms of long climbs where there isn't a lot of technical maneuvers. The steeper and chunkier the climb, the more you're going to need to move around your body, and the easier that's going to be, the lower your saddle is. The third point that I wanted to go over is one that we're all guilty of, and that's a lack of commitment. Sometimes climbing can be just as scary as descending or jumping, especially if you're clipped in. It's important to weigh the risk out and also to ask yourself, is this climb within my skill level? Chances are, if it is a climb that's already in your head, it's because it's driving you crazy because you know you're right there and it's within your wheelhouse. One thing that I've learned over time, sometimes the hard way, is that a lack of commitment is actually more dangerous than fully committing. Similar to a jump where you might hit the brakes right at the end, if you don't completely commit to the climb, you could be toppling over a cliff or shinning yourself really bad with your flat pedal. Now, I've done both of these and I wouldn't recommend either. So one thing I would really want to say to you guys is make sure you're committed if you're trying to climb. It's going to be hard regardless, you might as well give it your all. The fourth thing I see in people when they can't get up a climb is a lack of repetition. It's so important to chip away at that climb and inch further and further towards your goal. Whether you're on the group ride and you don't want to hold them up, or you're getting in your own head and you tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow. It's important to really download the feature and consider, is this something I can do? If you believe you can, and you really think about what gear you're in, how your suspension feels, and how you time your pedal strokes, chances are you're going to inch farther and farther up that climb every time you try. One of the things that people forget is we're all human and we all make mistakes. That especially applies with technical climbing, and it isn't going to be something you get down first try. That's one of the reasons it's so polarizing. Some people rather walk their bikes up, but chances are if you're watching this video, you do have that one climb you're sick of walking. So download the feature, think about your gear choice, how it feels below you, and what you feel you need to do differently to ensure you get up the climb. Repetition makes perfection, even if it takes a while. Don't get discouraged, stay committed, and watch yourself get up that climb. The last thing I see in people when they can't get up the climb is the improper suspension setup and wrong tire pressure. With that being said, we're all different riders, and it's important to know if you're the light, nimble rider or you're more of a bulldozer who likes to smash into things. One thing's certain, the rockier and more technical the climb, the more you want your suspension open. While this may seem a little backwards at first, it makes a lot of sense. Reason being is if your suspension is fully open, it's going to be able to mold a lot more to the surface you're putting it through. The more rigid your bike is, the more it's going to ping and bounce off things. Same thing applies with tire pressure. The higher your tire pressure, the less that tire is going to conform to the surface you're on. The lower the tire pressure, the more it's going to mold to the surface. With that being said, no one suspension setup or tire pressure is perfect for everything, and it's important for you to weigh out the pros and cons of each one. Say you're running a high pressure, you risk not having quite as much traction as you might need on the given climb. Say you want to run a low pressure, you risk pinch flatting or simply not having enough air in your tires for when you get to the descent. Same thing applies with your suspension. When you're fully open, you should still feel like you have a decent amount of pedaling support so that when you do go downhill, you're not going to bottom out and you're going to have just as good of a time as when you were stoked that you got up that climb. If you made it this far in the video, I really hope you learned something new. It's always so awesome to see people progress at what they love, and I hope these 5 tips really helped you do so. With that being said, this is a new video style for me. And as I continue to create more of this style of content, I think you'll see that I get better and better with the progress on the editing side and also the side of giving tips. I've listed these tips in the bio, so if you're more of a reader, feel free to just read the bio, write those down, copy and paste them, whatever you need to do. What really means a lot to me and really gets me stoked is knowing you're out there trying and really trying to succeed in those things that are difficult. After all, we're mountain bikers. If we didn't like a challenge, we wouldn't be in the sport in the first place. I really appreciate you guys watching today. It always means a lot when you stop by, leave thoughtful comments, and really show you're just as stoked as I am on this whole mountain bike thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next video. Stay tuned, there's a lot more coming.